We have a 1-hour panel chat now, how innovation can underpin Europe's recovery. Again, we're quite tight, so please don't be frustrated/cross if I don't take a question, because we do have a great lineup of speakers. Of course, as a starting point, we're taking this 150 billion plus euros of COVID recovery funds that are dedicated to digital, a real once in a generation chance to overhaul Europe's digital infrastructure and critically support the public and the private sector to embrace open innovation. But the question here, we're going to explore a little bit how the funds are going to be rolled out in member states, and sticking with the member states with the national level. Our panel benefits from high-level contributions from Italy and Spain. And alongside those contributions, we're going to look at the ways that companies alongside governments can work not just to develop, but to rapidly scale solutions to societal challenges. We're going to spend a little bit of time on open innovation. That was flagged up by Dassault Systèmes in our first panel, and explore how it can be used to modernize the public sector, clean up cities, support traditional industries to be greener and more productive. And of course, always we have to ask, for all of this to happen and happen better and faster, what technical challenges and policy roadblocks do we need to tackle? Now, who are our speakers? Cecilia, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about them, because you know them and you can give us a little bit of a steer on who we've got on this panel.
Yes, thank you so much. Just reminding you that Digital Europe also have around 40 national organizations in 28 European countries. And of course, the governments are the ones that are walking the talk with the funding that is now at the table. And we have quite an amazing lineup on this panel. So apart from two great industry leaders, Mr. Anguilletti from Red Hat and Sophie Proust from Atos, we also have the Minister of Italy for Tech Innovation, and not least a former CEO of Vodafone also. I think it's very interesting to see that we now have more and more people entering policy, also with a private sector background and knowing about digital. And of course, we have the Secretary of State for Digital and AI, Carme Artigas, and not least also a founder of an AI company with huge expertise in AI and data. And of course, Roberto Viola. Roberto and I go way back. Some of the first year in Brussels, we spent a long time doing matrices of verticals and sustainability and artificial intelligence and AI. And I still remember the first meetings, and I think we can say that he has been a major driving force within DigiConnect for the publication of the Digital Decade targets also. So a great thank you to these people who are, of course, spending time with us today to discuss how do we actually act as a team, as Europeans, but also as Italians and Spanish people in moving forward this transformation, and how do we maybe work across border in these pan-European projects in investing in the right things to make us more competitive, to make the targets just mentioned before, that 50% of the top tech companies in Europe are actually European. And with that, I will leave the word to the first speaker, Vittorio Colao, the Minister for Tech Innovation, and as I said, also the former CEO of Vodafone.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be invited here. I apologize, I cannot stay very long because today it's an important institutional day in Italy. I think the title of today is very well picked, Europe's Digital Moment. Europe is going through a very promising phase as regards to digitalization, and Italy is no exception. So just to remind the framework, we as a country are the first beneficiary of the NextGen EU initiatives, both the Recovery and Resilience Facility and React EU. That's 191 billion euro. To that, we have added as a government 31 billion through a complementary fund. So the total amount of money that we have is 222 billions that we have to deploy in 5 years. Of these, 27% or 50 million are really earmarked for digital. So your question was, what has happened in Italy? What have you done, guys? First of all, I counted, we met as a cabinet 54 times in 10 months. We have adopted 109 recovery funds related initiatives. We have reached 51 objectives which were set for December. And these included things like simplifying laws, speeding up administrative procedures. You were asking me, what are the challenges? I would put the simplification of administrative procedures as probably the number one challenge, nothing to do with digital, much more with processes and people. We have worked on reducing the length of legal proceedings, which is also a very important part of the solution. And then, of course, created incentives for companies to invest in advanced technology, research and innovation by adopting an AI also strategy, which I have to thank Roberto Viola. He has written a very kind letter recently about it. I really thank you for the letter. Now we have to do it. So it's good to have a plan, finally. Now we have to implement it. Looking ahead, by June 22, we need to reach 45 new measures. 30 are reforms, 15 are investments. These are key things like reform of public procurement. So again, back to your question, one of the biggest challenges in digitizing a public administration is the speed of public procurement and the complexity versus the speed of technology and technological development. And the two clearly work on clocks which seem coming from different ages. The other very important thing that is being activated now is digital health records and telemedicine initiative, which is a massive change that will take place. And I have to say, yesterday it was reported by the press, so I can talk about it. The cabinet met, we reviewed, we took stock of the progresses of ongoing reforms and measures, and again, as it was reported by the press, we were pleased. Pleased is a big word. We were satisfied that we are doing a good job. We are pleased when we finish the job. And then 50 more measures have to be finished by 2022. So if I look then at what I have been in my ministerial mandate spending, so far we have committed 9.5 billion, which is more or less half of the direct investment. And we have focused on 3 areas. The first one is connectivity. The second is digitization of public sector. And the third, as I said, is e-health. On connectivity, we are investing around 7 billion, 6.7 to be precise, on guaranteeing nationwide 1 gigabit per second connectivity for families, for businesses, and for all public administrations, and 5G coverage across the whole territory, including areas where commercially, normally, private investment would not go quickly. We adopted in May the strategy for broadband. We did a very, very thorough mapping exercise in cooperation with the operators. And we are also earmarking, as I said, 2 billion for 5G connections in areas where there is market failure, or there could be market failure, and the digital divide could widen. In parallel, we have reduced the implementation days from 250, 300 days to 90 days for realizing broadband infrastructure. And I have to say, in the last weeks, we launched the public tenders for connecting schools, connecting healthcare facilities. And here we're talking about a speed of 1 gigabit to 10 gigabit, depending, of course, on the size of the health and the school establishment. And here we chose the subsidy model. So we are covering up to 70% of the expenses for this type of investments. We expect that by June, we will award most of this connection project. And by 2026, this should be done, should be finished. So this is very important because this is the plumbing. And while we all are very, very fond of innovation, innovation should be, of course, supported by a very pervasive but also socially fair infrastructure everywhere. Second area is digitalization of public sector. Here we have around 6 billion to sustain the transition. And our objective is to go by 2026 to have at least 80% of the essential public services completely digitized. I would like to share for 30 seconds how we manage this, because I had conversations with my peers, including Carme, who is in this panel, on how to govern this process, which is a challenge in the public sector, because by definition, public administration is decentralized, is everywhere, but almost by definition, digitizing requires homogeneity and standardization. So there is an intrinsic tension here in the system. We set up a structure on two levels. We retain the coordination at our central level, and central means the ministry, the department, and an interministerial committee that oversees the whole project. But then implementation is given to local territorial administration, allowing for the best performance, for them the possibility to operate as aggregators of skills, of ideas, of projects. So the best will help the ones that have to fill the gap, the less performing administrations. And we have created a dedicated task force, which is nested in my ministry, but will be deployed across the country in 7 or 8 regions in order to be sure that we can help those who have fewer skills. This is another big challenge. Not all administrations have the same level of skills, to help the ones skilled to adopt the initiatives. And then we have created a platform, which is called, with not a lot of fantasy, Digital Public Administration 2026, but that was the self-explanatory name, through which the administrations can apply, can access the funding, can be monitored and checked up, and they can get the money. And this will work through what is called the lump sum system, which is a simpler system to get the money to perform the tasks. Now, looking at a broader policy scenario, we want clearly to push the adoption of key digital public services, primarily reinforcing the digital identity system. So the important pillar of this program is to have at least 75% of our population by 2026 with a digital identity. We start today in a pretty good position. We have increased dramatically in the last 12 months. Now we are at 43%, so 43% of Italians have a digital identity. I would say we are at levels of countries like France or Belgium, and ahead of other countries that I will not mention, but France and Belgium are there with us. This also requires intervening on digital skills of citizens. So we have programs to build up skills among the population. We just signed last week an agreement to involve foundations and no-profit organizations into this effort to strengthen the STEM curricula across all education level and across the workforce through reskilling and upskilling efforts. Second, this money will be also used to reinforce the interoperability of platforms via an API catalog that allows central and peripheral administrations to draw on cloud data, to process them, to deliver services to citizens, and to scale up in a cost-efficient way. And I have to say we have some good early results. Since January, we have completed the digitization of the public registry, so citizens can now download their own 14 digital certificates at home digitally, completely in a legally binding way, legally valid way, without cost. And we have this mobile application that is really a wallet, in between a wallet and a notification tool, that has reached 27 million users and is used regularly by 6-7 million users per month. All public administrations publish on that, and for example, I pay my own taxes, the social contributions for those that I have to pay, and my tickets, my fines if I get them. I usually don't. Through this, application, which is linked to all banks, all payment systems, has my credit cards in it. So it's a little bit of in between a wallet and a portal for the public administration. I'm a great fan of this. And then, of course, we are working to secure the data via cloud infrastructure, holding information in a secure way. And we have now a tender out for a national secure cloud system to host strategic data and critical data for the public administration. And finally, fourth point, we are fostering the cooperation with private through PPP, public-private partnerships, and particularly for GovTech startup to help them have a role in our national strategy for AI, but also in our national strategy for digitization. A final word on e-health. I do believe a lot in this. We are putting 15.6 billion on health. A part of this is digital, around 4. And the core of it is the electronic health record plan, which is already operational in Italy, but to be honest, was not well connected, not very standardized, not homogeneous across the regions. The work that you are doing is really to support the completion of interoperability, of creation of standards, and also of the actual usage, which is again very uneven in different regions of the country. On that, we will build our telemedicine platform, again involving private and public at the same time. And the Minister of Health also has 1.5 billion to upgrade the diagnostic equipment to digital grade standards for hospitals. So if I had to sum up everything we are doing, I think we are, you can call it bootstrapping, you can call it accelerating, you can call it installing the new release of what is a long-lasting transformation within the Italian public administration, but we're doing it with a lot of cooperation with academia, with society, and with the private sector at large. So in a nutshell, I would say 3 goals for the coming years. 1, to continue the simplification of norms and administrative processes, which cannot be forgotten if you want to digitize the rest. 2nd, to encourage skill, knowledge, and know-how transfer between public and private in a balanced, in a fair way, but also in a way which fosters innovation in areas such as telemedicines or telecommunications. And then, of course, 3rd, working on skills and of those who are in the workforce, but also the youth and the less digitally able. Thank you very much for your attention. And again, apologies for not being able to stay with you for the whole day.
Thank you very much. I think in any case, you have given us such a comprehensive overview that you've pretty much covered every question that I would have asked you in this session anyway. So thank you very much. I was a bit unhappy that you didn't come up with a sexier name there. You were saying, I think you said not very fantasy, that was your word. So there was a sort of an audible in the room. But otherwise, very, very interesting on everything about e-health, certainly simplification of processes, digital skills, and critically this fostering of the public-private partnerships, which in itself. But can I end with one quote? I like what you said. You said innovation, because this is at the heart of this panel, should be supported by a socially fair infrastructure. So I like that, and I thank you very much. And Minister Colao, I can let you now get on with the engagement that you need to attend, and it's been a pleasure to have you with us to help frame this session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now we are going to bring, if you want, if it helps you, before we bring everybody else to screen, we could do a poll. I think we've got a poll that we can just quickly put, and then I can ask everybody else to join us, who are also obviously remote. There we go. Will we reach the European Commission's goal of 75% of companies using cloud computing services, big data and artificial intelligence by 2030? Are you going to be as clear and rapid as you were in answering the first poll today? Yes, says the man on the front row. Yes, Katrina, of course we are. Will we reach the European Commission's goal of 75% of companies using cloud computing services, big data and artificial intelligence by 2030? At the moment, it's neck and neck. So let's have a look. People are not, they're getting, those who are less optimistic seem to be in the lead at the moment. So I think, yeah, it's not so uneven, but there's some optimism, but there's more, I don't think. So I could have taken a lead of the room and seen what percentage then do you think, but I won't, because we have fabulous speakers waiting, and I'd like to ask our lovely technical crew if they could bring all of those speakers to the screen. So Okay. Quelque chose à mal tourné. I've got a little hand going up there, but I'm going to remind you of who I am shortly going to ask to join us. So we are going to hear, which is fabulous. There we are. I've only got you here behind me. I don't have you in front of me. So it's going to be a bit of head ping pong. Welcome to all of you, to Carme Artigas, to Roberto Viola, Gianni Anguilletti from Red Hat, and Sophie Proust. So lovely to see you. I'm going to wait for them to put you up in front. I'm going to crack right on with this and come directly to Spain, if I may, and ask you, and then I'll come to Roberto Viola, because I'd like to hear a bit more about those national plans. But just as a follow-up to Italy, can I ask you, Carme, what, if you just had to focus on 3 priorities for Spain in supporting this digital and green transition of society, what 3 priorities can you cite for us?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Katrina, and congratulations to the excellent team that is organizing this event. So yes, it's difficult to pick 3, but I would say the challenge we have as a Spain is that we need to cover at the same time short-term, mid-term, and long-term challenges. Short-term means leaving no one behind, and that special focus is on digitalization on SMBs, and also in leveraging the digital skills of the whole citizenship, as we still gap there on basic skills. On the mid-term challenges, we need to help the industry move and transform towards a data economy. We need to move from 20% existing contribution of digital economy in the GDP up to 40% at the end of 2025. And that will be done to, for example, sharing industrial data spaces, as we are pushing from the Gaia X national chapter, in which Spain has positioned themselves to lead the digital space for tourism. And also in the necessary, and I cannot agree with Vittorio more, modernization of the public services, that even though we are number 2 in Europe, we still have a room for improvement, especially in moving services to mobile apps, improving cybersecurity, and also the cloud. And the third challenge is long-term challenge. That means investing today in the opportunities of the future. And that is fostering entrepreneurship and, of course, building the necessary skills on AI, cloud, cybersecurity, the professionals of the future. And this is why we have very competitive national strategy on AI and also the Quantum Spain project.
Thank you very much. And just a quick one. Interestingly, what I was going to ask our minister, but I can ask you. I mean, in terms of this super important, inclusive, leave no one behind digital skills, how do you find people's, the average Joe, I always say, perception of all of this and digital as an enabler of the green transition? Is there, how much is that conversation out there in the media? Do people grasp this?
I think there's of course, the pandemic has helped us a lot to remove some adoption barriers. People that thought that digitalization was not their business, it was only for big companies or tech companies, and everybody, especially SMBs, have recognized that that is the part of the new economy, the new society. Of course, there are very challenges in terms of public opinion, because sometimes digitalization is associated with risks, with loss of jobs, with a loss of digital rights, and this is why Spain is pushing forward a very compelling idea, which I think we all share in Europe, is that we don't like the way that technology and especially AI is developed elsewhere in the world. We are proposing a third wave, which is it is compatible to have progress, to have digitalization together with respect for digital rights. And this is why we have pushed for this Charter of Digital Rights, which means that we don't see any digital transformation if it is not inclusive and it's not guaranteeing the rights of the citizens, and of course, attending to close the existing digital, gender, socioeconomic, and also territorial gaps that still exist. So we have a challenge in really sharing all these positive aspects also of the technology in the public opinion, but we are very concerned that this is everybody's concerned that this is the way to go. On the digital skills, we have a plan which is 3,500 million euros to guarantee that at least 85% of the population has basic digital skills. We have still 40% without basic digital skills, but at the same time, we need to develop the high performance workers of the future, people experts, and we need to invest a lot in academia and research as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn directly, if I may, to Roberto Viola, Director General at DG CNECT, because I know I've got you with us till just about 12:05, so I want to make sure that we can hear from you. I'd like to just very simply, I mean, I think what would be very useful for us to know is a little bit, a whiff of your assessment of the digital parts of the recovery and resilience plans that you've seen. You know, we've talked about using funds to digitalize the private sector, the public sector, but also in terms of supporting the deployment of advanced technologies. I mean, is the balance right? Do you think the money is going on the right things? Not just the visible stuff, perhaps, not just the things that for, you know, politicians, they need to show to citizens, right, this is happening, here's a fabulous transport sector, but something that's maybe a little bit more hidden. How do you see that? Is the balance right, do you think?
Thank you very much for inviting me and for being part of this fantastic panel and for the question. So the short answer to your question is yes. You know, when we propose the recovery resilience plan, and we propose to have 20% of the investments in this plan dedicated to digital transformation, there were some very skeptical about the possibility for member states to do this kind of huge investments in a very short time. And I heard many times, will the member states reach 20% digital target, 1% in their plan? Will they be able to devise plans that make sense? Now, the result now is that we have 26% of the recovery and resilience plans, which is dedicated to digital investment. It is about 120 billion euros that will be spent on digital transformation. And this is an unprecedented investment, an unprecedented result, and it shows the willingness, and you just heard it from Vittorio and Carme, of member states to engage, to be serious, to invest. You know that the condition for the Commission to disperse the funds is that this transformation is linked with milestone and targets, with reforms. And that's the powerful part of digital transformation. Digital transformation, you were looking for an hidden gem, and the hidden gem of the digital transformation is the accelerator of the transformation of administration, society, and economic system. And the link that exists between digital transformation and a more efficient delivery of public service. So 37% of the national plans are dedicated to the modernization of public service and the public administration. Okay. And they are dedicated to what we think is a kind of paradigm shift towards an administration which is on the palm of the citizen, rather than an administration where the citizen goes and is asking something. So it's reversing, I mean, the order of things. We hate administrations because we figure out administrations as offices, as places where people queue up. The objective of the recovery plans, the objective of the national and European project about the identity wallet, and you have seen what you can do, I mean, and what we can do with a little preview of this, which has been the COVID certificate. Getting the administration on the pocket of the citizens, it's really a change. It's a change that makes the administration much more efficient, much more at the service of citizens closer to the administration, and member states closer together, and much more European reflex. So this I find really interesting and important.
Thank you very much, and I will come back to you, but I'm going to let everybody lay out their stall so that we can hear. I'm going to turn to Gianni, welcome if I may, Vice President for the Mediterranean region at Red Hat. So here, as we know, we've got the word squarely innovation in the title of this session, and how it can help to support and boost recovery. Now, what I said after we heard it mentioned by Dassault Systèmes on the first panel is we just want to have a look at open innovation and how specifically its role it can support a country like Italy, like Spain, to reach its digital decade goals. So can you very briefly, for those of us who might be less knowledgeable, explain the concept of open innovation? And then, as I said, I'm a stickler for concrete examples. Give a couple of examples of how it can support those digital decade goals.
Sure. First of all, a warm welcome and good morning also from my side. It's a pleasure for me to be invited and to be present with you at this event. Unfortunately, not in present, and we all know why. So, to your question, Kat, I truly believe that there has never been more need to understand and embrace digital innovation. And in fact, in a world where changes and disruptions have basically become the norm, both governments and industries increasingly rely on the power of open innovation to collaborate, share, tackle, and solve very critical challenges. Certainly, over time, the term open innovation has become somehow, I would say, fluid, since it was first coined more or less 20 years ago. And for that, and for the 50 million plus open source communities in which we participate, open innovation translates actually into open source, which is today a key method to develop, scale, and release IT solutions upon which small or large governments, as well as industry companies, can subsequently build their own and differentiated applications, as the Minister Colao said a few minutes ago. And in fact, today, open source is really a key component of successful open innovation and digital transformation initiatives across basically every core verticals. And we are very proud to say that 100% of Fortune 500 banks and telco companies and healthcare providers and airlines, but most importantly, all the EU governments are today partners of Red Hat. And for today's panel, I'd like to share two remarkable examples when it comes to such open innovation. And the first one is related to Italy. We are very proud on how the Italian governments responded and adopted open collaboration and open innovation with a partnership with Red Hat. And for example, literally in a matter of few weeks, we were able to co-create an open source platform to manage and monitor the distribution and administration of literally millions of anti-COVID vaccines for the Italian population, with a partnership with Poste Italiane. And State Secretary Artigas, Red Hat is equally proud of another example in Spain that to me is very close and connected to some of the themes that you have exposed a few minutes ago. And in fact, we have worked with the Junta de Castilla y La Mancha explicitly to bolster local digital public services to the citizens, as well as to boost the technical innovation in small and medium business across the whole region. So I believe that these are a few examples that can really highlight how open innovation and open source can truly sustain the companies and the governments in this new norm in which we are living in.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to come directly to Sophie, because you talked about Atos there and the collaborative work. So I'm just going to ask for just their perspective on that sport. And then I'm just going to give a heads up to Roberto. I know I'm conscious of the clock ticking, and I am going to come back to you and then just prioritize slightly, because I know you have to slip away a bit earlier. But I mean, we heard there that you do collaborate, Sophie. So again, because I'm hot on these examples, they speak to people. How does Atos support its customers to use open code and data to boost their innovation and development. Can you give us just a couple of examples and complement what we just heard there from Red Hat?
Absolutely. Thank you, Katrina. Good morning to all. And I mean, it has been touched upon in this panel. Our customers' innovation is really entangled with their digitalization process in the way that they want to see the business benefits out of this digitalization. And so meaning faster business execution. I mean, the minister talked about it, e-governance, need to treat the citizens' requests faster through efficient portals. Industry want to have digital view of their physical environment to anticipate outage, for example. We also want to have less reliance on physical contingency, and this COVID increased this situation. We are willing to have, of course, more efficiency and less cost of operations. And for this, automation and AI plays a key role. And of course, we want to anticipate the disruptions of other players. So acceleration, brought by digitalization of processes is also enhanced by the new business model based on platforms. And so when we talk about platform, we talked about multi-sided platforms, which actually enable ecosystem. And Gianni, you've talked about it when you mentioned managing, monitoring, distribution of vaccines. And so also the sharing of data to offer an integrated experience from the end customer perspective. So all this actually enables open innovation. So giving you an example, Atos has developed together with Red Hat, a fantastic use case as an innovation project for European Union, by the way, where we'll have been leveraging open source from Fireware, but also Red Hat OpenShift middleware technology. The project is called Cooperative Intelligent Transport System, ITS, and this is something by which we create a network with nearby vehicles on the road, in the street, so that they can communicate with each other to have, for example, traffic information, receiving alerts, but also some parking guidance, information that an emergency car is approaching, and of course all this in real time. So we've said it, innovation is really guided by the needs of improving business execution, efficiency, or, for example, simplifying, and the minister talked about it, citizens' access to healthcare through a central portal. So really, at Atos, we really think that all this requires both understanding of the business, but also a clear view of how technology contributes to the solutions. We've talked about it also because security and trust is very important. And of course, the possibility to leverage open source, because open source, as Gianni said, really relies on collaboration. And it's a real asset to converge to standards and also benefit from the dynamic of the community working all together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to pick directly on that. And I haven't, I don't forget you, Carme. As I said, I will come back to you. But I just want to see if, from the EU perspective, Roberto, you want to sort of round that off, because there was the open source study commissioned by DG CNECT. You've got ongoing policy in general, interoperability, and so on. So just hearing those stories, hearing those concrete examples, can you just provide us really just top line, so I can maybe squeeze in another question to you, on the Commission or the EU's view on this role of open source as a driver of the EU's digital recovery? Is there anything you want to add there?
Thanks. We are great believers of the importance of open source, and probably one of the organizations in the world that it's really walking the talk more than anybody else. We have indeed looked at the correlation between open source and economic growth and social innovation, and this correlation is very, very much present. The studies show that many different sectors are now using open source, as it was also mentioned here today. For instance, the top 500 supercomputers are run on open source. And even if today we are talking about important vulnerabilities that we have to fix, we still believe this is the right way to go. For instance, our COVID certificate, European COVID certificate, want to billion certificates and infrastructure is all open source. We will now look more and more at what we call the computing continuum. So make sure that from telecommunication network to cloud to computing, we will have the possibility to glue this all together, and intention not using technical words, to really make sure that everything works together through open source interfaces. We will do it through our research programs, and we will do it in terms of concrete procurement through the Digital Europe program. Also in microelectronics, we will present very soon the Chip Act. We are very much believer that the future of microprocessor and advancing processing passes through open source and open cooperation.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to just switch again, because I'd like to give you a chance to respond. I'm going to come back to you, if I may, Carme, and just switch up my questions, because I do want to come to you, as we heard from Cecilia, and just ask a question that relates to your experience as, you know, a former CEO of a tech company. But before I do that, because all of this, we know it's an ecosystem in which, and we've heard the words collaborative so many times, in which everybody has their role to play and nudging others into, you know, being able to accelerate their role. So we talked about how industry earlier could actually be a driver for the educational sector kind of getting up to speed. So all of those different relationships. But we've got Roberto with us. What do you think, what 3 actions do you think need to be taken in order for Europe to be, let's just look at AI specifically here, a global leader, because obviously it's come up several times. Is there anything that you would say, right, that those are the 3 areas that are important to me, or I think that's what they need to do?
Do you mean that's for me? It's for me, the question, Katrina, or for Roberto?
For you, yes. No, it's for you, because I'd like to give him a chance. No, it's for you.
Okay.
I'd like to give him a chance to respond. Yeah.
Okay, for me, it's important that we understand that Europe needs to be a leader on AI. We cannot just be a witness between this tennis play between US and China. We are a great consumers of technology. We must be also creators and leaders of technology. And I think Europe has the opportunity to have its own model for developing an AI which is human-centered. We talk about humanism, technology humanism, so human-centered technology development. I think that's a very good, important step, the European Commission's proposal for a regulation of European approach to AI, because it's limited the excessive power that the current digital players have in the world. It's helping the opportunities of SMBs and European industry to have a role. And the important thing are 3 things for AI: data and computing capacity, and talent and financing. These 4 are the key things we need to ensure at European level. We need to have access to funding to scale ups. We are very good at startups, not that good at scale ups. When companies need to scale up, they're done doing in Europe, and we must be able to build unicorns from Europe and in Europe. And this is why, for example, in Spain, we have launched a very important program called Next Tech Fund with 4 billion, aimed to support investment in a scale up. We are built already ESNA, European Startup Nation Alliance, we together with together with Portugal, Austria, and we expect Italy and France join very soon, as well as Germany. This is going to be a very important alliance to promote startups in Europe as well as the scale-ups. And I think the challenge we have is to invest more in talent in Europe from the academia, and also in upskilling or reskilling the existing labor force, helping the European industry become a more important data industry. We have 4 important, we call it engine sectors, we call it in Spain, which are intelligent tourism, digital health, sustainable mobility, and agrotech. I think these 2 important sectors also apply for the rest of Europe. And don't forget that our digital sovereignty as Europe depends on our data sovereignty. So we should protect our citizens' data within our borders. We should protect our industrial data within our borders. And there are, for example, the Data Act is going to be very important on that. So I think Europe has all the opportunities to be a leader with a new proposal, with a proposal more, I would say, protective of the digital rights, focusing also on avoiding and closing the digital and exclusive gaps that still exist. But we need these 4 pillars: funding, talent, data, and processing capabilities.
Thank you very much, because I loved it, because first of all you said there are 3 areas and then indeed cited 4. So that was great to have 4 areas which we had processing capabilities there that came in. So Roberto, just conscious that I'm just coming to you with the last question. I'd like you to be able to respond to that, and then I will come back to my other speakers. This is all about innovation. This is all about respective roles. So what do you hear there? And what would you like to add in terms of what Europe really can and should be doing to really promote innovation as a part of this recovery? What have you not had the chance to say, and what would you like to respond to Carme there?
Thanks. I think Carme said it all with these 4 pillars. I think there's not a kind of the magic trick that makes innovation to grow. It's really continuous work that you have to look at the 4 dimensions that Carmen mentioned. So, and I would also add that the success of innovation is really teamwork. That's why, I mean, the new way of doing things in Europe with the recovery plan, with the work we have done together to fight the pandemic, with the work we are doing together on innovation of public services, is the way to go. This is really the role for public authorities, and make sure that we are enablers of innovation, of transformation. We help the private sector, and also we protect the citizens. That's the other dimension, which is not patronage. It's to empower the citizens that they can make their choices. They can choose their future. It's not an algorithm choosing the future for them. They can actually master their own data and make their own choices. Of course, these are nice words, but that's the difference of Europe with the rest of the world. Along these nice words, we are lining up legislation. We are lining up the largest open program, science program of the world, which is Horizon Europe. We are now offering the recovery plan. So I think it's a unique combination of teamwork, social innovation, empowerment of the citizens. And there's not a kind of, magic trick, but it's a very hard work, believe in it, and really continue working the talk.
Thank you very much. On those positive words, I am going to let you step off screen, actually.
Apologies for this.
No, that's absolutely. Listen, everybody has their engagements. Everybody else don't step off, because I've got a sort of the last part. As Roberto does step off, I wanted to just run a second poll, if we have just a moment, because they don't take very long. If the tech team have got that ready, if you haven't, don't worry, but I wanted to just close off a little. There we go, because we'd had this focus on open innovation. So now people have heard more about the concept, not least for those who were less knowledgeable, and some examples. How important is open innovation to reaching the EU's digital decade goals? So what's your view on that? There are people there is a person who thinks, no, not important to actually reaching the goals. Either that's devil's advocate, or that really is no. Fairly important. And then a very robust majority is saying very important. Now, talking of reaching goals, let's just focus in this last part, if I may, with you on some barriers and some ways to address those challenges. That's a nice way to finish. Please do be aware that we have no more than about 8 minutes. So if I can just come back to you, Carme, and again, I said I was going to sort of approach you with this other hat, former CEO of a tech company. We've already heard, we know this, that for smaller businesses, it can be really difficult sometimes for all sorts of reasons in this digital transformation. If you had to just cite a couple of the biggest barriers for those smaller businesses to adopt really data-led business models, what would you pinpoint?
I think the challenge we have is that we should bring SMBs on board of this digital transformation and look at the difference between an SMB and a startup. It's not size, it's not access to investment, it's cultural change. So the challenge we have with the existing SMBs in traditional businesses is to understand the new dynamics of the data economy and bring them on board And the lack they have in accessing more funding to become bigger, particularly in Spain, we have a problem of size in terms of SMBs, are really small and micro companies. And that technology allows us to seem bigger when we're small, because we can work in networks and we can scale thanks to technology. So we need to bring them on board. And they also have difficulties on attracting talent, because talent is going to bigger companies. And that's a challenge we need to help them. We have just deployed a very important program called Digital Toolkit with 3 billion euros to impact 1 million SMBs. And we are providing digital vouchers to bring them on board by allowing them to use this voucher to acquire digital services in the cloud and software as a service. So really the aim of 75% can only be achieved if we bring the SMBs on board and make them, these SMBs, more digital SMBs. And the other challenge is that they are not competing under the same conditions with bigger platforms. And this is why it's so important, the new legislation on DSA and DMA, because they cannot compete. For example, we have increased e-commerce like 50% average in Spain during the pandemic, some specifics like retail even up to 70%. Only 10% has been captured by SMBs. Only 10% of this increase. So that's important. We need to, that the rules of the game apply for everyone, and also help them on this cultural change, understanding the dynamics of the digital economy, helping them move to the cloud because it's the right way to adopt this more efficiency process, and also on the upskilling or reskilling, because it's very difficult for them to attract new talent.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move straight on now because we haven't heard so much from both Gianni and Sophie, and I want to give you time again to just build on what you first talked about, but more importantly, pick up on a couple of things that we've touched upon. Specifically, Gianni, if I may, with you, these challenges faced by the public sector. We heard from Roberto the importance of kind of the public administration being in the citizens' pockets. We heard about from our minister right at the start on these two speeds, the speed of public procurement, which is just not functioning at the same speed as the speed of the digital transformation. So if we look particularly at the public sector, can you just cite 3 ways that we can reduce barriers for the central or the local administrations to really take advantage of those digital technologies? And I know that you've got a couple of examples, probably from Italy or elsewhere.
Sure, Kath, thank you for this very interesting question. So I would say that Red Hat has quite a unique observation point, given our long-standing collaboration with all the EU 27 governments to drive open sovereign solutions over the past more or less 20 years. And, 16 years out of these 20, I've been with Red Hat. And so, I had the privilege to see at firsthand the evolution of reducing such barriers or silos thanks to open source. And as you said, I believe that there are, 3 ways to reduce such barriers on top of what State Secretary Artigas has just said. The first is default to open principles and local requirements. And in this sense, last week's EU declaration on digital rights explicitly call out digital sovereign and the importance of interoperability, as well as open standard, modular architectures, and the use of open source software. And in this regard, I believe it is very important to underline how both in Spain and in Italy there are long established legal requirements, as well as clear best practices and practical guidelines in areas such as open source licensing, which are issued in Spain by the SGAD entity and in Italy by AGID, and these obviously greatly facilitate the adoption of digital open technologies. The second way is leading by adoption and leading by example, and in this regard, let me share an interesting example related to Sogei. Sogei is an information technology company 100% fully owned by the Italian Ministry of Economy and Finance, who is really paving the way for a significant adoption of digital technologies. And in fact, they have built, in collaboration with us, cloud as a service platform through which they are releasing several digital services to the Italian citizens. One of them being the payroll and the timesheet for the public sector employee of Italy. Another one being the tracking and certification of the vaccinated citizen. Another one, procedures for taxation. And I would say I'm very proud to say that most of the services and the applications, if not all of them, mentioned by the Minister Colao earlier on, are running on open source and open digital technologies. Many of them are supported by us. And third,
it's got to be super quick because I've got my eye on the clock.
Okay,
and I
so,
come back.
third is political leadership. And today we are having a great example by the panelists who are really showing how politics can really pave the way and facilitate adoption of this kind of technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My apologies to interrupt.
Not at all. Not at all.
Give some breathing. I love the red hat behind you there. I'm just disappointed you're not wearing that red hat, but there we go. So that's all right. Again, you know, this is all about action. This is not just about blah, blah words. So, Sophie, 3 challenges faced by businesses in this, you know, transformation, digitalization. What do we need to do to address them, and what can you bring to the table, and what should, you know, EU and national government bring? Because we hear the word collaborative, not least with open source. So bring us something new right at the end.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. Thank you, Katrina. Just and you said it. We've discussed how collaboration powers innovation with open source, but also collaboration shapes up new business model, and I think this is very important. We've talked about data. I brought the notion of a multi-sided data platform, which will support the rebound of the economy in Europe. It is a technical landscape that is not well covered today, not even by the big cloud actors in place. So for me, Europe has really an opportunity to foster the emergence of those data sharing spaces, you know, to support innovative business emergence. So this would be my first challenge. The second one, I want to insist maybe a little bit more than the panelists on the trust, because for me, trust is really a catalyst for those data sharing platforms. And here again, I think European Union can bring its technology to the forefront to support the trusted data exchange. And finally, and the panel talked about it, I think it's very important for the adoption of public-private hybrid cloud. It's really a mandatory stop in the digital journey. And here, to make sure we have the full potential of it in our transformation of application, we need to adopt those cloud-native architecture patterns. And so, to be transformative, the engineering teams need to master this. And there's a lot of challenge around reshaping the skills that is needed to build such proficient cloud-native and full-stack engineers. So I think my third challenge would be that the EU national governments have a real opportunity here to foster the education and the skill alignment in the scholar courses for this expertise so that it's really available in all of our countries.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And clearly that came up in our first panel. Clearly that comes up again. And we heard it from Spain there. All of these important touch points, talent, financing, data, speeding up processing. We heard very much the differences between startups and scale-ups, where we're very good at starting things, what we need in terms of innovation to really push that scale up. Lots of stuff around data sovereignty. Still, I think we could have had a whole panel on data sovereignty because it's very interesting. Another time we'll take a poll, but I tie in with what Cecilia said at the beginning. Yes, data sovereignty, but within a global framework. It's not competitive. There is so much to share globally. So it's really on those alliances, those partnerships, finding those common spaces, and what is very challenging, the governance thereof. And it's come up so often about inclusivity, data sharing. We heard there a lot of conversation on open source, how it can drive the EU's digital recovery. And again, I just absolutely, I come back to what our minister said at the beginning. Innovation, yep, great, absolutely, but it has to be supported by socially fair infrastructure. So I do come back to that. You've all been really marvelous. Thank you very, very much for being so fabulous and for bringing the screen to life for all of us. Even though I'm here with a row of empty chairs, I felt like you were with me. So I can bid you a very kind farewell. You can listen in to the next splendid session, which is going to be moderated by somebody else. And I wish you a very good day and, of course, much passion and luck in your ongoing adventures. Thank you very, very much. We can give a warm round of applause.
Bye.
Bye-bye.